I never imagined that moving into an old duplex on the outskirts of Cleveland would unravel a mystery that would haunt every fiber of my being. When I first arrived, I was drawn to the building's quirky charm, a layout where each unit had its own front entrance, yet a single back door opened onto a narrow, creaking staircase that connected the basement to our homes. I felt a sense of community among the tenants, and the building's age lent it an unspoken character that I found endearing. For a while, life was simple. I settled into my modest apartment on the first floor and began to notice small, inexplicable anomalies. Personal items that I remembered placing carefully in one spot would inexplicably disappear, only to resurface in odd corners of my home. I recall the chill that ran down my spine the day I found my wallet, which I was sure I had tucked away, sitting on my kitchen counter, as if it had been deliberately placed there. It wasn't just my belongings. The air around me began to change subtly. I often felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, a cold, almost imperceptible brush, as though someone had passed too close by without my noticing. The building itself seemed to harbor secrets. I became increasingly aware of a peculiar presence near the back door. On several sweltering evenings when the heat forced me to leave windows open, a faint scent of stale cigarette smoke would drift in. Although I never smoked, I knew that one of my neighbors, a withdrawn man named Jim, was seen outside with trembling fingers and a cupped hand around a lighter. His presence, once merely odd, began to cast a long, dark shadow over the sense of safety I had once taken for granted. One evening, after a long day and an exhausting shower that failed to wash away my lingering unease, a distinct creak from the back door froze me in place. I stood motionless, feeling as if the very air had grown heavier, each second stretching out with a weight of dread. My heart pounded as I traced that sound to its source, only to find my apartment unchanged, yet suffused with a disquiet that I could not shake off. The unsettling incidents escalated. Items would be moved ever so slightly. A set of keys that normally hung on the same hook would be found on the floor, and a cherished photograph, long misplaced in the recesses of my memory, would suddenly reappear on a table. That particular photograph, a candid shot of me sleeping, vulnerable and unaware, sent a shiver through my entire body. It was as if someone had been watching me, capturing moments I had thought were private, with a methodical precision that hinted at a disturbing obsession. As whispers of disquiet spread through the duplex, I learned that I wasn't the only one troubled by these occurrences. The other tenants, though silent in our shared corridors, exchanged knowing looks and cautious nods, each of us bound by the creeping realization that our private lives were being intruded upon. I sensed their fear and resignation, a collective violation that united us even without words. My growing alarm culminated one fateful evening when a sudden violent crash erupted from the basement. Driven by a mix of terror and determination, I hurried down the narrow staircase. Behind an old water heater in a forgotten corner of the basement, I discovered a hidden space, a makeshift room constructed with discarded blankets, empty food containers, and scattered personal effects. Among the debris lay a series of photographs, arranged with a disturbing care. They weren't random. They were images of me in my most unguarded moments, sleeping, brushing my hair, even caught in fleeting expressions of solitude. The precision of these photographs revealed the intruder's chilling motivation, a compulsive need to control and relive the lives of those around him. It seemed that Jim, the neighbor I had once regarded as odd but harmless, harbored a dark obsession, a desire to imprint his presence on our lives, to fill a void left by his own past losses. The landlord, Mr. Peterson, responded with swift, decisive measures. New locks were installed, and security cameras, along with motion-detecting lights, began to monitor every corridor and entrance. Though these actions brought a measure of relief, the betrayal of privacy and the violation of my most intimate spaces left an indelible mark on my soul. In time, the sense of intrusion slowly receded, replaced by a determined resolve to reclaim my life. I eventually moved out of the old duplex, leaving behind a place that had once been filled with promise but had become a labyrinth of shadows and secrets. Yet, the experience taught me an invaluable lesson. True strength is forged in the crucible of our darkest fears, and healing comes from confronting and understanding them. Today, as I look back on those harrowing days, I find solace in knowing that I emerged stronger from the ordeal. The haunting memories, though still occasionally stirring in the quiet of night, no longer hold me captive. I have built a new sanctuary where the past is acknowledged, but no longer defines me. And in that newfound peace, I finally find satisfaction. I had been feeling utterly alone in my new city, Boston, a place I'd hoped would offer a fresh start after college and a broken heart. My tiny apartment and demanding entry-level job only deepened my loneliness. On a roommate's suggestion, I reluctantly downloaded a dating app. After a series of awkward chats, I matched with a man named Dylan. His profile exuded a carefree charm, a picture of shaggy brown hair, a relaxed smile, and a promise of good times, all backed by hints of musical passion and culinary skills. Despite my hesitation, I agreed to meet him, taking every precaution imaginable. I arranged to meet at a train station and resolved to leave quickly if anything felt off. The day of our meeting was bright and warm, yet as I stepped onto the platform, anxiety tightened its grip around my stomach. When I saw Dylan waiting, I couldn't help but notice that his real-life appearance differed from his pictures. His hair was longer, tied back loosely, and his eyes, rimmed with dark circles and shadowed by a hint of intoxication, betrayed a weariness that unsettled me. As we walked along tree-lined streets toward his home, the normalcy of the neighborhood offered a fragile comfort, though a persistent undercurrent of dread nagged at me. When we reached his house, a 2-story colonial set apart by overgrown shrubs, I immediately sensed something was amiss. Unlike the welcoming facades of nearby homes, his house exuded an eerie stillness. The exterior, with its peeling paint and shuttered windows, gave little away, and the silence that greeted me felt heavy. Inside, the air was stale, carrying a mix of cigarette smoke and a musty odor that clung to every corner. I tried to trust my instincts as Dylan led me through dim hallways lined with outdated family photos and an assortment of mismatched furniture. Yet every step I took heightened the feeling that I was entering a place where normalcy had long since abandoned its post. My heart pounded as he directed me toward the basement, a space he described as a rehearsal room for his band. Descending into the darkness, the temperature dropped noticeably, and a chill crept along my skin. The single flickering bulb at the bottom of the stairs revealed a large, divided room cluttered with dusty musical equipment and miscellaneous boxes. In one corner stood a heavy metal door, reminiscent of those used for walk-in freezers. That door seemed oddly out of place and filled me with an inexplicable dread. As I took in the scene, I realized that nothing about the setup matched the idea of a friendly barbecue gathering. Instead, every detail whispered a secret of control and a twisted desire to trap and manipulate. When I asked myself where the promised gathering was, dread sharpened into a clear, alarming realization. There was no barbecue, no group of friends waiting. Instead, I felt the sinister presence of someone whose motivation went far beyond mere loneliness. His need to lure unsuspecting women, to record their vulnerabilities and dominate their sense of security, was all too palpable. As the situation escalated, every instinct in me screamed that I was in danger. When I felt him trying to restrict my movement, I knew I had to escape immediately. In a burst of adrenaline, I broke free and fled toward a back door I had noticed earlier. My pulse roared in my ears as I stepped outside into the brightness of the day, a stark contrast to the darkness I'd just left behind. I hurried along the sidewalk, my mind racing and my hands trembling with fear and relief. I made my way to a nearby corner store where, in the quiet sanctuary of its worn bathroom, I called my roommate and explained everything. The realization that the man I had met was not Dylan, but someone else entirely, an imposter with a dangerous past, sent shockwaves through me. In the following days, as I tried to piece together the fragments of that harrowing encounter, I learned from a local news headline that the man had been arrested. His real name was Eric Lohman, a 34-year-old with multiple prior arrests, whose twisted habit of using fake profiles to lure unsuspecting victims had already left a trail of shattered lives. Though the memory of that day still sent shivers down my spine, the support from friends and the clarity of the news brought me a deep sense of relief and validation. I have since rebuilt my life with a renewed awareness of my inner strength and intuition. Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more horror stories. Goodbye.